You said you could teach anybody to fence?
Just about. Like I said, I've taught from, I do kids ages 7 to adult. I've done Paralympic fencers too with the U.S. Paralympic team out of Louisville, Kentucky. And then, like I said, fencing those lifelong sports, so anybody can do it for, up until, you're healthy and able to. In larger competitions, the summer national stuff, they have an age group 70 plus. So you're looking at, you've got, people's grandparents fencing as well as, the grandchildren. So it's one of those lifelong sports.
It is, and it's a great way to share with your family. I read the story of a woman who wanted to be closer to her son, spend more time, so they did fencing together. Yeah. And you could take out your frustrations.
Yeah, but we've had some of those cases at my club here. We've had parents fence with their son or daughter and stuff, and just
when
do
did
the
you
family
start
thing.
fencing?
I started back in '96. Back in.
So give me a ballpark.
I was 12 years old.
12, yeah.
And I saw an article in the newspaper for Western Kentucky University had a fencing club, and there were two gentlemen going to a summer national tournament, and then I was like, hey, there's fencing here, there's sword fighting, because I was one of those kids that watched, like the Princess Bride, Star Wars, all the things like that, and it's just one of those things. I'm like, oh, that's really cool. And then I was looking for a new sport to do in between. I was playing baseball at that time, a couple years before, and I hadn't done anything in a couple years. And so I had a friend whose parent was a professor at Western, and he looked into it, and we got up there with first class, and it was kind of an open to the community at that time. Mm-hmm. Now it's more of a closed-off club, but they let me stick with it. So I was up there, and I was a club president for a while and stuff at times and stuff.
So do you remember that first day going in there and thinking,
I do.
I kind of like this thing?
It was one of those things, there were, maybe I was the only kid there, and the rest of them were college-age kids and stuff, so. But I remember trying it out, and it was the first time, and I was like, well, this is pretty cool, but maybe I'll give it a little more, and I just stuck with it. It was one of those things I'm like, this is for me.
This is for me.
So, yeah.
So what does it take to be a good fencer?
Well, it's a lot of there's a lot of coordination involved, a lot of thinking,
klutzy?
physical thinking.
Yeah, like what if you said you could teach anybody?
With that, anybody can still fence, but to be at a higher level. But basically with that, a lot of my drills that I do in my classes, I do a lot of warm-up actions and stuff, but I'll do a lot of things to work with hand-eye coordination to help people that don't have those aspects, help them work on those, even if they don't do it outside of fencing or somewhere else. So they get to work hand-eye coordination drills.
Okay, so hand-eye coordination, what about with some kind of strength? There's certain muscles,
Not so, a lot of it's leg-based, because you're using forward and backward motions. Weapons aren't that heavy that we use. We call them weapons, but they're sporting equipment. But basically, it's a lot of strategy involved. So it's basically, outwitting your opponent, controlling distance and timing and things like that.
So if you're a chess player, chances are good you'd be a good fencer.
Yeah, but
right?
it's like a physical game of physical chess. But the big thing about that is you got to move your body and your brain at the same time.
Yes.
So that's the big thing.
So do you ever use that analogy with people? And
It's like a physical chess.
Yeah.
It's kind of we use as fencing coaches and advertising. We use that as a game of physical chess because you're constantly trying to outwit your opponent, doing certain actions to be one step ahead.
So you served in Iraq, you did fencing, and then you served in Iraq, you came back here, and you decided you wanted to share that love of fencing with others.
I had a friend of mine, we were on a kayak adventure, and we were working at Lowe's at the time, and I had a wager. I said, we were both going for the fire department course. I said, if I don't make that, I'm going to start my own fencing business. Because at that time, I was giving lessons at Western. And so I missed the mechanical section of the test by a couple points. So I said, well, plan B. So I started Bowling Green Fencing Academy, and I've been at Parks and Rec for 7 years now. And that's there, I'm open to the public. So anyone who wants to take lessons can come. Besides Olympic fencing, I do theatrical fencing classes as well. Like the kinds you see in the movie. Yeah.
Yeah, that to me, when a friend was telling me about that, and you choreograph, it's like choreographing fencing.
And that's a lot of fun because it gives me a break to do something different, and it's a completely different aspect of the fencing realm of things you can do. You have fight choreography, and you have the sport of fencing and other aspects, but it gives me a break from the seriousness of competitive fencing to do something fun and work with that.
I love it. I love it. Fencing. Who knew? Stephen Fisher. Thank you for joining us here on
thank
Coffee
you.
Near Me. We're coming to you from Spencer's Coffee House, and a special thanks, of course, to them for letting us come here and hang out. And thanks to you.
Thank you.
We invite people to keep the conversation going and ask them who would they like to sit down and have a cup of coffee with. So I ask you, living or dead, who would you like to sit down and have coffee with? Don't think too long.
Let's say Bruce Lee. In his book, Tao Jeet Kune Do, he references 2 books. Well, there's four books he references, 2 of them are fencing books. And so a lot of his actions that he does, that in his book he teaches, are fencing related.
Bruce
So it's pretty
Lee.
neat.
Good to know. Stephen Fisher,
Yeah.
thank you for
Thank
sharing
you.
your passion for
Oh,
fencing.
no problem. Thank you.
Cheers.